Hello, and welcome to Freya's Tropical Garden. We've had a bit of a cold spell this month, and it's been an unusual dip for this time of year. So I hope everybody's plants are doing okay. And here's what we've got coming up for you in today's episode. We have the draw for my competition to win plants in my garden. I visit the RHS Wisley flower show. And I answer your questions on overwintering. But first, here's what's been happening in my garden since the last episode. This month the temperatures have dropped, and we saw some very uncharacteristic lows of around 3 degrees at night. And I know many people in the UK saw lower temperatures than that, and even some frosts. My plants have all remained outdoors and protected, as the low temperature was only for a couple of hours at night, and daytime temperatures were still warm enough. In the garden, I've started to replant a few cannas and other plants which are easier to dig up, as it now looks like we may not be moving just yet. Cannas like my Cleopatra that I left in the ground have flowered well this year, as has the pink canna that I didn't dig up, which has been flowering for a couple of months. However, I've had very few flowers from the canna which I did dig up and potted up earlier in the year, and even the smaller ones which I've replanted are still not flowering yet, so it really has affected my garden this year. The same is true of my Dahlia Tynings Smarty, which, although it has still had its usual long flowering period, has produced fewer flowers, and most have been white, rather than the usual pink and white which is so striking. My Dahlia Cafe au Lait is flowering now, though. This dahlia is one of several new bulbs I ordered before I started digging up my garden, so was planted directly into pots. I think the flower on this is particularly stunning with the dark pink streaks. The toad lily Tricertis formosana was also planted into a pot, and these unusual flowers are adding some new interest, especially at this time of year when not much else is flowering. It's a shame I didn't get to plant this into the ground. As you can see, there are plenty more buds waiting to come out, and with a few of these together I think it would look absolutely stunning. My Korea Marion's Marvel is another plant that I dug up earlier in the year. It's been doing very well, and now it's also starting to produce some flowers. This is a plant that flowers throughout winter and keeps its leaves, so it's a great plant if you're looking for some winter interest. Another plant that I dug up earlier in the year is my Yucca flaccida golden sword. This is another plant that will keep its colour throughout winter and is hardy throughout most of the UK, so it's a great plant for winter interest. So far it's coping well with having been dug up, and as an added bonus, I've discovered a new yucca growing in its place. Although digging up my garden has been emotionally difficult, finding new plants has been the one upside. Last year I planted an Amorphophallus albus in my garden and left it outside because I believed it was hardy. However, when I dug up my bed, I looked for it and couldn't find it anywhere, and it's only just started to grow now. So of course I've now dug this up and potted it up as well. Earlier in the year I showed you my Brugmansia or Angel's Trumpet, which I found a little piece under the soil, and I've potted it up and it's been growing really well. Another plant that I had to dig up earlier in the year is my Acer Eukigamo Nishiki. This is particularly sad that I had to dig this up, as I bought this to be a monument to the cat that I buried in my garden, although I'll always think of him when I see these beautiful pink leaves. At last year's Wisley Flower Show, I bought this Leonotis leonora, which is an absolutely stunning plant with beautiful flowers. This is one that I filmed at last year's RHS Wisley show. They have vibrant orange flowers that resemble red-hot pokers. Unfortunately, this one's still yet to flower, so I really can't wait to see this. Hortinia cordata, or the chameleon plant, is another one that I bought at the end of last year, so I never really got to see the benefits of it as it was planted in the garden. But it's growing really well now in its pot, and you can see these beautiful pink variegated leaves. And it's hardy throughout the UK, so great if you're looking for some colour contrast. I bought this Ruum Alexandrae over a year ago now. It was still very small at the time, which is why it stayed in a pot. However, it's starting to get a bit bigger now, and it really is quite a fascinating plant. And this is also hardy throughout the UK. Another bulb that I planted earlier in the year is the Scodoxus multiflorus, otherwise known as the blood flower. This has only just started growing, however it's not hardy so will need to be brought indoors for winter. It will eventually produce these beautiful bright red flowers, which will give a very tropical feel. Earlier in the year, I reviewed a label maker, which was making it so much easier for me to print out lots and lots of labels for all the plants that I was digging up. I promised to update you on how durable these labels are, and unfortunately they have faded a lot in the sun, however they are still legible. I think this faded writing will stay legible, however I'll let you know in the future. At this year's RHS Wisley Flowers Show, I purchased Decaisnea fargesii from Jurassic Plants Nurseries. This is a really interesting tropical fruit tree that produces edible fruits if you have two of them, with a banana-like flesh inside. I've also managed to get one of the Musa Siam rubies that were for sale at B&M. These used to be really expensive to get hold of, however they're not hardy and they're very difficult to get through winter as they need a lot of heat and light, so most people are buying them as annuals now. Another stunning variety of banana with this pink variegation in the foliage is the Musa Nono, which I've now purchased from MKL Garden on Facebook. Karishma sells several stunning bananas and colocasias as well as some other plants. And I'm hoping to have a video for you with more information in the next episode. And I've been germinating some seeds as well. I've got Washingtonia filifera and Washingtonia robusta seeds that have germinated. And once these are a little bit bigger, I'll be offering some of these for sale. And I've also germinated some Yucca filifera, as well as some Yucca rigida, a Yucca rostrata, Dazzlerian wheelery seedlings, and a Hibiscus coccineus, which will produce beautiful red flowers. I also have a couple of pink guava seedlings which have germinated, and I'm really looking forward to trying to grow these. Now coming up first, we've got the draw for my competition to win 5 plants from my garden, so best of luck to everybody who's entered. In the last episode of Freya's Tropical Garden, I launched my competition to win 5 plants from my garden. The competition is now closed and I've had 7 entries, which I'm now going to draw using a duck race. So the 7 people who've confirmed they lived in the UK are Anne Clark, Palms Exotic UK 2194, Big Woofer, Tropical Gloss, Derek's Cheshire Palm Garden, Rob Wilson 6079, and Kelsig 69. So good luck to all of you. Congratulations to Tropical Gloss, you won my competition. Please send an email to freyastropicalgarden@gmail.com with your address details. Thank you to everyone who entered this competition and for your kind comments. And if you didn't win this time, please keep your eye out for future competitions. Coming up next, I visited RHS Wisley for their flower show and spoke to some of the expert stallholders there. Earlier this month, I visited the beautiful gardens of RHS Wisley, which is the setting of their 32nd annual flower show. It was a lovely day out with plenty of beautiful plants for sale from over 40 specialist nurseries and stunning floral displays, as well as the exhibition pieces from nurseries such as Norfield Nurseries, who specialise in acers and Japanese maples. A stunning display of hostas from Sienna Hosta. Mandevillias from Mandy Plants, who I interviewed last year. Unusual and exotic trees and shrubs from Jurassic Plants. A selection of bonsai trees from Driftwood Bonsai. Unusual plants from the Southern Hemisphere in Ellie Plants Nursery. And a selection of tropical plants from Botanico, who I also interviewed at last year's fair. Drought-resistant plants from A&J Plants. And lilies from Hart's Nursery. But now I've got some interviews for you from some of the expert stallholders that I spoke to.
Hello, I'm June Nash. I'm the General Secretary of the National Dahlia Society, and we're here at Wisley at our national show, which we have here every year at this time of year, where you'll see some of the best dahlias in the world. We like to encourage people to grow dahlias, but we also like people to become members of the society. And if you do become a member of the society, you'll get free books, you'll get an annual and a bulletin every year telling you things about how to grow dahlias and which ones are good for this and which ones are good for that. Behind me we've got a garden display of dahlias, with dahlias intermixed with other garden plants. As you can see here, every colour under the sun except blue or green, although some white ones have a shade of green, but they're not really green, and some have the name blue, but they're not really blue. But they're beautiful all the same.
My name's Tony O'Connor. I run a nursery in North Somerset. We're called Tynings Climbers, not Twinings, that could be confused with the T. We grow a mixture of hardy and tender climbers, and we have 4 national collections: Thunbergia, Mandevillas, Passiflora and Thunbergias. We have a huge range of plants. Some are for indoors, one of them being a bougainvillea. People often ask the question, can you grow them outside? Not really, not unless you're really, really sheltered. The trouble is with a tropical plant is the winter wet that we have here coupled with the cold. So that's why you need to bring them in under cover for the winter. So we often get asked, can you grow these outside? No, not really. We also have another plant which is lovely. It's Dregia sinensis, a very scented plant. You need a very sheltered spot outside for it, but the scent on them is lovely. They're also known as a false Hoya. So we have a large selection of different clematis, passion flowers, and quite a few for indoors.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jo Jackson from Ottershaw Cacti. We grow all manner of succulents. So we're based very close to Wisley in Ottershaw, just round the corner here. We specialise in aeoniums, so we're going for a national collection of aeoniums, hybrids, and we have 8 of our own that we've grown ourselves, so which we're particularly proud of. We've won a number of gold medals at the Chelsea Flower Show, which indeed we're also particularly proud of, and enjoy showing and growing our succulents. Here this weekend we are focusing on Pink Witch, which is a gloriously pink aeonium, which multi-headed and everybody seems to be going mad for. We've also got many of the 150 different varieties that we grow here as well, so there's lots for people to choose from, as well as lots of mini succulents. They're always quite popular for the succulent gardens, and cacti of course.
Hi there, my name is Rob Hardy, Hardy's Cottage Garden Plants, a free folk Whitchurch in Hampshire. My wife is the boss, she's the horticultural trained one. I went to Writtle College in Essex and studied commercial veg growing. Did a 10,000 word thesis on rhubarb, but she still got one of the top marks of the year. We started our nursery back in 1987. We went to a car boot sale and Rosie, my wife, was clearing rubbish at the garage and saw plants being sold, so she came back and dug the garden up. We then found out while we were doing the car boot sales that people were asking for the old varieties of cottage garden perennials. And so we started off growing them. We now grow over 1,500 varieties, peat-free, outdoor grown, and we've been peat-free for 13 years. We used a compost from a company called Westland originally, and they managed to get to 50% peat-free. They started using a wood fibre, and then they stopped selling to commercial growers. They only sold retail. So we then started looking around. There's a company called Melcourt, which the RHS now endorse, and they work on bark-based compost, which has a little bit of coir in it. So we started using that 13 years ago, and it's a consistent mix. That's why we've been successful with it. The only thing we add to it is slow-release fertiliser, which is an osmocote, which is a 12 to 14-month osmocote, and it just releases fertiliser on a regular basis throughout that period. We exhibit at all the RHS shows. We did Chelsea for 29 years. We've got 24 gold medals. Hampton Court we exhibited since it first started in 1990. Not missed a show in 34 years. We do Malvern, Gardeners World Live at Birmingham. So we do shows all around the country.
My name is Ylva Blidd Mackenzie, and I run Madrona Nursery together with my husband Liam Mackenzie. And we have been in business now for 40 years. So we have quite an established business. It's a family business. We grow a very wide variety of plants. A lot of them are quite tropical, and at least could give that impression, although they might be hardy. We grow a lot of things that you might not have come across somewhere else. We have Fatzias. That is Fatsia. Needham's variety was a long time very rare. Now it's a little bit more available. We have things like, this is new for this year, it's quite exciting, Farfugium, Green Giant, large shiny leaf. We grow a number of different wild gingers. So this is Dancing Crane, which is variegated, it's quite nice. We have Paulownias, Clerodendrons, several different of those with variegated leaves. We also have some plain at the nursery. Exciting for me particularly is at the moment I actually have for sale small orange trees. So they call Calamondo, they're tiny little oranges and lovely orange blossom. I have one myself in a pot, and I grow it for the oranges and make marmalade, which is lovely.
Right, hello, my name's Joy Michaud, and I have a company called Seaspring Seeds, and we sell seeds of all vegetables, but we've specialised in chilies now for the last 30 years, I think it is. We started with selling fresh chilies through the post before the internet, so it was with cheques and paper order forms, and now we sell mostly seeds, but we also sell a lot of plants. I do displays like this at the Wisley Flowers Show. We breed chilies. We bred the Dorset Naga, which in its time was the hottest in the world, and we bred many other varieties. We're probably the biggest chili breeder in the country, although we're tiny. It's just not many people breed chilies in Britain. And yeah, we love our chilies. The mantra you've got to always work with is heat and light. Chilies need a lot of warmth and they need a lot of light, and if one of those is lacking, your plant's not going to do so well. They also of course need to be watered regularly and fertilised regularly, but if they have plenty of light, plenty of warmth, then they're going to do well.
Hello, my name's Jodie. I'm one half of the Caley brothers. We're actually sisters and we're based in West Sussex. We're mushroom farmers, and we grow ready-to-grow kits to get everyone growing more mushrooms in their own home. Like anything that you grow in your own home, they taste much better than anything that can be shop bought. They've got a much bigger flavour and better texture than anything. So we've got lovely yellow oyster mushrooms here. We've got pink oysters, grey oysters, all kinds of different mushrooms that you can grow in your own home. Not only that, but do we teach other people how to grow mushrooms. So we run workshops. We've got workshops at Fortnum and Mason, the Tate Modern, and also our farm down in West Sussex over the next few weeks. We do lots of project kits. We've just written a book with Kew Gardens called Project Mushroom, and in here it teaches you how to grow mushrooms on sustainable substrates like coffee grounds and straw, whether that's indoors or outdoors with log growing, utilising your damp woody area in your garden if you have one. So there's lots of ways to get growing mushrooms, and we're here to teach everyone a bit more how to do it. It's very simple. They don't grow in the dark, they want a bit of light to grow, so we like to dispel all the myths about mushroom growing as well.
Next up, I try to answer your questions on overwintering. If you're new to tropical gardening, or even more experienced but still not confident with your overwintering routine, then you may have questions about how to get your plants safely through the winter months. With autumn just around the corner, I've made this video to hopefully answer some of those questions and cover the basics of overwintering. Please feel free to comment below if you've got any questions. The first question people often ask as the temperatures start dropping is, when should I start overwintering my tropical plants? Although the answer to this question isn't straightforward and may differ depending on where in the UK you're living or which type of plants you're trying to overwinter. As a rough guide, you shouldn't really have to start overwintering your plants until the end of October, and in some cases you may be able to leave it till mid to late November. I tend to put a few houseplants out for the summer months, which prefer temperatures to remain over 10 degrees C. So these are normally the first plants that will come in over winter. In some cases they'll come in as early as September, although I haven't brought any in just yet. However, most of my garden plants will be absolutely fine until the first frosts. Frosts can form when night temperatures drop to around 4 degrees C, so as long as the temperatures are staying well above this, your plants will be fine. Although slight drops below this for an hour or two at night will be fine as long as the daytime temperatures are still warm enough. In many cases, your plants won't need protecting until after the first frosts. For example, the leaves on plants like cannas and colocasias will die back once they've been frosted, and the plant dies back to ground level, which is the best time to start digging it up if you're planning to overwinter it by dry storing. The best way to check how much protection your plants will need over winter is to search the internet for information on their minimum temperatures. The RHS website is a good starting point. However, as you can see here, they have listed Musabasju as not hardy, while they can survive throughout most of the UK with protection in colder parts and with no protection at all in the warmer areas. So you might want to double check with a couple of resources. If you're not sure what the minimum temperatures are in your area, then you can check with the website Time and Date, which will enable you to check any town, click on Past and select the month. I recommend checking January and February for the last few years to get a good idea. You can see last February Southampton had an unusually low dip to -7. This is not typical, but highlights the need to be a little cautious. If you live in warmer areas of the UK, you can check my videos from last winter for ideas of plants that will be okay left outside over winter, and I'll put some links in the description. Dry storing is the process of drying out bulbs and rhizomes for storing over winter. In the same way as you may receive bulbs such as daffodils and tulips that need no water until planted, plants that are dried can be put away and forgotten about over winter without needing any special care. This method works well for caladiums, canna, voodoo lilies, colocasia, and even larger Ensete bananas. But be careful with smaller Ensetes as they will struggle to survive the process. Before dry storing, plants like colocasia should be watered less often as the weather gets cooler. Wait for the first frost to kill the foliage and then dig up the rhizome and leave it to dry in the sun or in an airing cupboard for a couple of days. Brush off as much soil as possible and ideally cover with an antifungal powder such as sulphur. The bulbs or rhizomes need to be dry before storing to prevent rot. Store bulbs and rhizomes in newspaper or sawdust, and make sure there's good air circulation going through the box or container by adding some holes to it. If overwintering in a sete like this, the roots and the leaves could be cut right back and the trunk could be hung upside down for a few weeks to allow the water to drain out. My own plants are still too small, so I'm unable to demonstrate this in this video. For plants that are being left outside over winter, some may need additional protection. Pots might be moved into an unheated greenhouse to avoid rot in wet winters. Plants in the ground will benefit from having a mulch, which includes adding fresh compost or bark chippings or manure to around the base of your plant. This will help protect the roots from the frost and the cold. Gunnera owners often protect the crown with their own upside down leaves, although mine's never had any protection and it has survived the crown getting iced. Above ground, consider wrapping plants in horticultural fleece for added insulation. You can also use a plastic cloche to help keep it dry. Palm trees will benefit from having straw added to the crown, and fronds can be tied up to help insulate it. And this will also make it easier to wrap the palm with horticultural fleece. Tree ferns may not need any protection in warmer areas, however otherwise can be treated like palms with their fronds tied up and some straw in the crown to help protect it. Fleece can also be used to wrap the whole plant. Before storing any of your plants or rhizomes in unheated areas of your house or garden, you should have a good idea what the minimum temperature is. For example, a garage attached to your house may benefit from some of the central heating. However, it's also possible that on colder evenings it could drop below the minimum temperature that your plant needs to survive. Many people lose plants like ensetes that are stored in a loft without awareness of how cold their loft is actually getting. Unheated greenhouses and sheds are likely to reach around the same temperature lows as the garden around them and are still just as vulnerable to frosts. But that said, they can still keep a couple of degrees warmer, which can be the difference on a cold night. It's best to use a thermometer, particularly one that records the minimum temperatures, so that you're fully aware of what temperature your plants are being exposed to. Another option, if you have the space, is to get a grow tent. I have a grow tent set up in my garage with a storage heater to keep consistent temperatures above freezing. This also allows me to use a grow light to ensure adequate lighting over the dreary winter months. A grow tent should also have a fan to help produce airflow. One of the downsides to overwintering plants in the house is of course that you do sometimes bring some of the bugs in that live in the garden. One of those bugs are harmless flies called fungus gnats. These normally lay their eggs in the soil and emerge as flies without any damage to the plants and are not biting insects, but they do get annoying when breeding indoors without any natural predators. If you're not opposed to using any chemicals, then a standard fly spray can help control their numbers, and yellow sticky traps also work well. 3% hydrogen peroxide diluted with 4 parts water can also help remove the eggs and larvae from the soil with no harm to your plant. I've left this one for last because there are several factors that can affect how well plants do when they're brought indoors. For example, some plants naturally need a period of dormancy over winter. I've lost Musella lasiocarpa by trying to overwinter it in a warm, bright room before I realised it was hardy enough, where I live, to remain outdoors where it has fared much better. The main factors to consider when plants are brought indoors in order to replicate its natural conditions as closely as possible are temperature, watering, lighting and humidity. Be aware of the position of your radiators, as most plants will not thrive and will most likely die when positioned so close to such dry heat. In fact, there's one windowsill in my house where only my heliconias are happy due to the radiator beneath it. Similarly, you should also be aware of cold drafts from doors or windows that can create cold spots. The overall temperature of your house may also have an impact if you like your heating up high all day and night. For instance, some plants may struggle with this and do better in a cooler environment, such as my frost-free grow tent I mentioned earlier. Watering can be a difficult thing to get right over winter, as many plants will need less water over the winter months. However, some plants do prefer consistent moisture. and others may need to dry out completely between waterings. A general rule of thumb is to test the top inch or two of soil with your finger, and if the soil is dry below this point, you should water. But for individual plant watering tips, it's best to check the internet for advice. If you find it hard to get watering levels right, self-watering pots may be helpful, which use a wick to keep the soil at a consistent moisture level. Lighting can be a tricky thing over winter, as some plants will need bright, natural light, while others will thrive all winter in the darkest corners of a house. Most plants will do well on a north, east or west-facing windowsill, but some may need direct sunlight from a south-facing windowsill. In some cases, the lower light levels over winter will not be enough, and artificial grow lights can help the plant meet its light requirements. These can be purchased quite cheaply online in places such as Amazon. Finally, one of the more difficult conditions to replicate over winter is the humidity levels. This can be especially difficult when the central heating is on, making the air much drier, and some plants really struggle with this. These plants may do better in a bathroom or kitchen. You can mist the plant regularly to improve the moisture in the air around the leaves, or you can create humidity by placing plants on a pebble tray filled with water. The stones act to raise the plant above the water level to prevent rot, while allowing the water to evaporate to increase the moisture in the air around the plant. I hope you found the information in this video helpful. However, if you feel overwhelmed, then please don't worry. Many plants are very adaptable and easy to take care of, whether indoors or outdoors, and it doesn't need to be complicated. Much of it is trial and error. But if you still have unanswered questions, then please feel free to comment below. Well, that's all we've got time for today on Freya's Tropical Garden. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you again next time. If you're enjoying the content of Freya's Tropical Garden, then please help this channel grow by subscribing. Every new subscriber is appreciated, and by turning on notifications to my videos, you can also make sure that you don't miss any episodes in future. You can also follow me on social media, where I'll release links to my latest videos, as well as share my flower of the day. You can follow me on X, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, or join my Facebook group to engage in discussions and share your own photos. Freya's Tropical Garden webpage also has links to my videos and helpful advice. And now, in order to support the continued growth of this channel, there is an option of becoming a member, which will give you access to a private Facebook group where I'll be running monthly competitions exclusively for members, as well as additional exclusive content. And as always, I welcome your feedback in the comments below.